I really like the design of the box. There's a magnet opening, and then it says, find the scent that calls your name. Let's see which one is calling my name. A fat electrician, I am trash, or maybe remarkable people. A selection of fragrances to delight the senses. That is so true. This selection is so amazing. I have a feeling that it was prepared by a witch in a very deep forest, by alchemists from Middle Age, and by a biochemical scientist that is coming from the future. A perfume that did call my name is Putain de Palace, and it draws an image of a promiscuous woman of Versailles. Quite intriguing, isn't it? And I really love the smell. But it is somewhat misleading because the name actually has nothing to do with promiscuousness. It comes from a Latin word putidus, which means rotten, spoiled. This is a referral to corrupted morals in the pre-revolutionary era of France. The smell actually is absolutely amazing. In the beginning, you get something citrusy and sweet. You feel a light rose covered with violet and iris, and that powdery notes are so strong that the rose is practically invisible here. And since I'm not a big fan of rose, I really enjoy that it is so invisible. The iris is really blooming in this perfume, and it's combined with some very light woody notes that are brought by the wind. Something like tonka and sandalwood, and it makes it really beautiful and sexy. It makes you really feel sexy. After wearing it for a few hours, I washed my hands and I washed my wrist, and it reminded me of another perfume from the collection. She was an Anomaly. I don't associate this perfume with iris and powdery flowery notes. I associate it more with a powdery cloud and rice powder, which actually is more in the description of Putain de Palace. So in fact, these two perfumes are somewhat in a similar category, while She Was an Anomaly is just more discreet and Putain de Palace is much better pronounced. The perfume with the most outrageous name in the set is I Am Trash. Imagine the dialogue. Someone comes to you and says, oh, what is that nice perfume that you're wearing? And your answer is, I am trash. But the perfume smells nothing like trash. In fact, it smells like a very fresh pink grapefruit. But not a pink grapefruit note that we're used to, but a real grapefruit when you start peeling it off, and that smell of fresh skin that you're getting, that's how it smells. And the second note that comes around a bit later is a note of green apple, but not a green apple that we're used to, but more of a, Absolute Vodka. They have a flavored line and they have a green apple flavor. That's exactly the green apple that is present here. It's interesting that the second name of this perfume is Le Fleurs du déchet, which means flowers coming from a garbage. And I feel no flowers in this perfume at all, but this association of flowers that have gone bad, I have it from the perfume that is called Archives 69, Archives 69. You know that flowers in a vase, they actually kill oxygen in the room? So think of a room that is very small, like the size of a toilet, and you have that vase with flowers, and the flowers have gone bad, and all the oxygen has been killed. That's exactly how it smells to me. And it even gives me that effect of choking, like I really have a feeling that I'm lacking air. Another perfume where grapefruit is really dominant is Remarkable People. There are not so many perfumes in this set that you can overspray, and this is one of them. Remarkable People is very light perfume. When I first sprayed it, I had not even read the description, and it made me think of Bellini. Bellini is a champagne mixed with peach puree. But it's not because of champagne I thought about it, but more because of a peach lost in alcohol. The second time I sprayed it, I did not have any associations with champagne, but more with the aftershave, like very light, kind of without smell. It's not really my cup of tea, but I see how many people would like it. One perfume from the box that I really hated is jasmine and cigarette. I'm sorry, but for me, it just smells like poop. I always give a second chance to any perfume. So instead of spraying it on my skin, the second time I sprayed it on a paper. And still it smells like poop. Cannot do anything about it, sorry. The perfume where I really catch the smell of cigarettes is called like this. This perfume would belong to the family of sweet and spicy fragrances. And the middle of this composition is a flower immortal. And I really like this accord, but not exactly in this perfume. Because all these spices, with a ginger in the middle, they create this sort of aroma of cigarettes, and I'm not enjoying it so much. But this is really my own perception, because the cigarettes are not a part of the description in this perfume. On the other side, there is another perfume where tobacco is one of the elements in the description, and this perfume is called Divin Enfant, which means divine child. Imagine an old lady who is a smoker, is wearing a mini skirt, and continues using her vintage cosmetics, especially lipstick, and that effect of lipstick is created by notes of peach and orange blossom. And then think of the skin of this lady, how it smells. It's like that powder, smokiness, but at the same time it's just an old skin. A perfume that has kind of a romantic name is called You or Someone Like You. To me it sounds a bit poetic, but in fact it's about LA and the dreams of people of LA, especially a woman of LA, trendy and hard to describe actually. And the intriguing part is not only your wish to discover LA and the smells of LA, but also that the perfumer does not reveal the notes of this perfume. It says, if you want to know what it's made of, don't wear it. But for a person like me, it's kind of like a personal challenge, because I like to know what it's made of and what I'm wearing. In fact, this perfume is very simple, and it's more unisex rather than feminine. My very first impression is that it's fresh and citrusy. And then you have mint crawling into that citrus. And it makes me think of a nice warm day in early spring when you're sitting on a freshly cut lawn and drinking iced water with lemon and mint. It's that kind of mint. It's not a kind of mint that gives you a cooling effect. It's really mint that is more like herbal. If I did not know the brand of this perfume, I would think it's Diptyque, because Diptyque has these perfumes that are not very distinguished in their character, but somewhat nice in a way. I personally don't associate it with LA. I would expect LA to have much more character than that. The Ghost in the Shell. My first impression of this perfume, I like it. My second impression of this perfume, what the hell is it? Reading the description does not give me any clarity at all, so I'm just gonna go with my instincts. And the first thing that comes into my mind is a kind of creme brulee. Some cream and vanilla, but at the same time there are some synthetic notes. It's like you're eating a fake creme brulee made of plastic. So imagine you're eating that fake creme brulee under a cherry tree. So you feel those delicate notes of cherry blossom, and at one moment you understand that under the tree there's a smell of cow's manure that is mixing in with your creme brulee and cherry blossom. In the description there's one element that caught my eye, and it's called vinyl guaiacol. And it's a kind of natural molecule obtained by biotechnology with a note of clove-like vanilla. And I think that explains the plastic flavor of my creme brulee. This one is semi-modern vetiver, or fat electrician. To me it's love and hate. And I'm gonna tell you why. I really love how vetiver is dressed in sugary coats in here. One layer is chestnut candies, and the other one is whipped cream that is coming from hot chocolate in a Café Fleurs in Paris, and that's the memory that comes out. But the part that I wish I could just take out from this perfume and throw it away, not to destroy my sweet experiences, is a kind of synthetic plastic part, and that really destroys the entire perfume for me. A perfume that is very complex and has so many layers playing around is called Une Amourette. That is a French designer, and the second name is Une Amourette. So at the beginning you have a layer of a spice bouquet with cardamom in the middle. And then you have something sweet that begins to develop in the middle of the spices. And this sweetness is coming from orange blossom mixed with peaches and apricots and eventually with vanilla as well. Yet there is some earthiness because of patchouli. And you get a perfume that is sweet and spicy and warm at the same time. It could be kind of a description of passion, in fact. That's why the name Une Amourette is very appropriate for this perfume. It does smell like a love affair. If I had to imagine the smell of a perfect man, this would be the perfume Tom of Finland. I'm just so drawn into this perfume. I wish I could smell on a male skin, but for me it smells like fresh mountainous air. Or I imagine the moment of coming out from the chalet and the sun just starts destroying that fog. This is the air and this is the Tom of Finland. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like leathery sweet at the same time. It's not imposing and it's just so beautiful. The perfume with the longest name is Hermann à mes côtés, mais paraissait ombre, which means Hermann, close to me, seemed to me a shadow. It's referring to a poem by Victor Hugo and is supposed to be a smell of a forest. Immediately I recognize it as a fresh, spicy and somewhat woody perfume. It doesn't take long to recognize a rose in the middle. But this is not a happy blooming kind of rose. This rose is dark. It's coming from the basement with the sense of vetiver and patchouli. And these notes, they make this scent kind of sad and dark. And I also feel some balsamic notes that remind me of tiger balm. In my imagination, this is a perfume prepared by a witch to protect you from a black eye and bad magic spells. But there's another perfume that is called Eau de Protection, which is water of protection. And this is a different kind of rose. This is a very typical rose from Bulgaria. To me, it's also mixed with Palmarosa. This one is a happy perfume. I really like roses as flowers, but I really dislike roses as a note in perfumery. Despite that, I have a big respect for the Extraordinary collection because this one is a masterpiece. Every perfume in the collection is like a poem or a little story. But Extraordinary collection, it's like a historical novel in 4 volumes, something like War and Peace. In fact, it's a very good comparison because here we have a battle of light and dark, kind and evil, and the entire story is about a rose. Each fragrance out of 4 has an element defining its character. It could be spice, musk, oud, or chypre. None of the descriptions actually gives you an idea of the complexity of these perfumes, and that's why I have so much respect for this work. They're so complex that I don't think I have the experience and knowledge to grasp and to explain it, but I will try my best. By spice, I remain. This is an interesting rose that is surrounded by exotic spices coming from the fairy tales of 1001 Nights. I cannot single out any spice in here, but I can tell you that this bouquet of spices is sweet. It makes me think of a Moroccan tagine with prunes. And in this big flow of spices, you have a rose coming out intertwined with oud. Rose and oud together, surrounded by warm, sweet spices. This is the spice must flow. Soul of my soul. This is also quite a unique perfume, and it takes your imagination into some green herbs or more of like herbal oils. Something green and fresh and intense with a rose in the middle of this composition, of course. And then it takes me more into deep forests, into deep forests of Canada with a lot of different trees. And it's not a humid forest, it's a forest when it's a beautiful sunny day. And the first woody note that I think of is not sandalwood, but more shredded oak bark that I buy in a pharmacy. Then at one point I have a feeling, actually more of a memory, from a disinfected hospital room. Luckily that hospital memory is very brief and very vague. On the other side, the rose is lasting very long. It's with us from the very opening for a few hours, and then it starts disappearing. And when it starts disappearing, that's when I begin to like this perfume. That's when you feel the richness and the warmth of all the woods and all the oils, and that makes it so unique. 500 years. The first thing about this perfume is a rose. The second thing about this perfume, it's a rose that I like. And this is very rare that I like a perfume with rose, especially when it's paired up with amber and oud. The secret of this perfume is that it's much more complex than its description. When I feel the rose, I don't just feel the rose, I feel the rose mixed with something else. And I was trying to think, what are these components that make this rose likable for me? The first thing that came into my mind is a brambleberry, but not a sweet brambleberry flavor that you have in cheap perfume sprays, but a real brambleberry that has a bit of an earthy flavor, and maybe in that mix there is also a light note of violets. This together is covering the rose really well. The second note that starts kicking in a bit later is something sweet, and it's a smell of brown sugar or maybe vanillin. Not vanilla, but vanillin that is used for baking purposes. You have that blackberry pie with vanilla and maybe sweet dough. That very distant sweet bakery smell with the flowers of rose and maybe violet, and a very nice delicate oud make it a really beautiful composition. And I'm not the kind of person who likes roses, I repeat once again, but this one is probably my favorite in this set. When I first saw it in the box, I misread the name and I thought it was ExperimentumCrucis. But what the creators had in mind is a theme that they call Beyond Light and Gravity. Unfortunately for me, this is not a perfume full of light. For me, this is a perfume full of darkness. This is a dark rose. ExperimentumCrucis is easily identified as a shipper family, but it's not made with the classical patchouli. It's made with akigala wood, which actually is not wood, but it's an element obtained from patchouli, and it's supposed to smell like wood and mosses. Unfortunately, I did not get any sweetness that I was expecting from reading the description. No lychee, apple, not even honey in here for me. And the rose here is surrounded by humidity and moss and wet earth after the rain, and some smells from a humid basement of a church. And if there is any light in here, this is a moonlight shining over a rose. A moonlight that is coming from a window very, very far and is barely reaching the bottom of this basement. If you buy the set, I recommend you to try Exit the King before ExperimentumCrucis, because this is also a shipper perfume, but this is not so deep and complex like ExperimentumCrucis. You get somewhat spicy opening with the rose and jasmine in the middle and earthy patchouli in the base. What makes it different is the note of soap that comes a little bit after spraying it and lasts throughout till the moment that you really smell like soap. I'm already not a big fan of shipper, and this soapy touch really makes me dislike it. This box was an amazing experience for me. I did not like all the perfumes, some of them I even hated, but it was really delightful to all my senses.